The plants remove solids and pathogens, then send treated water downstream and the solids, biosolids, onto fields as fertilizer. PFAS don't break down in that loop, they circulate. The class is very feature, persistence, turns waste into a conveyor belt that keeps moving, slow and steady, across landscapes. And then there's the air. Emissions from fluorochemical facilities can travel miles before settling. Shorter chain replacements like GenX are highly mobile in water and can ride that cycle efficiently. People living downwind and downstream don't need a chemistry degree to feel outmatched. They need transparency, what's released, when and how much, and they need regulators who treat PFAS as a class to avoid whack-a-mole testing that misses what's actually present. So what do you do in a web this wide? You pick leverage points. At home, choose PFAS-free cookware, cast iron, carbon steel, stainless, or ceramic-coated options labeled PFAS-free. Use a water filter certified to reduce PFAS. Point-of-use systems with activated carbon or reverse osmosis can meaningfully cut levels. Skip stain-resistant sprays and fabrics when you can. For cosmetics, look for brands that explicitly state no PFAS and avoid fluoro ingredients on labels. Ventilate when you cook. Don't preheat an empty nonstick pan and keep birds away from the kitchen if you still use PTFE. In the community, pay attention to water utility notices. Those decimals matter. If your system detects PFOA or PFOs near regulatory limits, show up at board meetings and ask about treatment timelines, granular activated carbon, ion exchange, or reverse osmosis, and funding. Push for source control, not just end-of-pipe fixes. Support fish advisories, even when they sting. They're there because monitoring caught something before the statistics did. Upstream, pressure works. North Carolina's stop to GenX discharges didn't happen by accident. It followed reporting, public outrage, and regulatory action. Europe's decision to add GenX to the high concern list took data and persistent advocacy. The EPA's move to legally enforce 4 parts per trillion for POA and POS, paired with a goal of 0, signals a shift from advice to obligation. There's still a gap between rule and reality. The 2031 compliance deadline is a long time in a child's life, but the target exists now. Utilities can build toward it. Polluters can be held to it. Here's the hardest part to say out loud. You can't shop your way entirely out of the web. Personal choices reduce exposure, they don't rewrite the map. That takes policy that treats PFAS as a class, closes the door on regrettable substitutions, and holds emitters responsible for cleanup. It takes testing that looks beyond the usual suspects and science that keeps asking better questions about mixtures and long-term effects. In the meantime, breakfast still needs cooking, and the tap still runs. You navigate the web with one hand while you push to reweave it with the other. In the body, what PFAS do and don't do. The water looks clean, the egg slides, and nothing smells like danger. Inside the body, PFAS act the same way. Quiet, persistent, hard to notice day to day. They bind to proteins in blood, hitch rides on albumin, and circulate. Unlike many pollutants, they don't park in fat. They move with serum, touch organs, pass through the liver again and again. Clearance is slow. Some long-chain PFAS linger for years. Even shorter-chain replacements can stick around long enough to matter because exposure is constant. The result isn't a dramatic poisoning. It's a background dose that stacks. Start with the immune system because that's where the story cuts through. In communities with measurable PFAS exposure, studies found kids mounted lower antibody responses after routine vaccines. That's not a headline you feel in a single clinic visit. It's a small shift that could mean less durable protection, more room for infections to slip through. Researchers seen this signal with several PFAS, PFOA, PFOs, PFHXS, PFDA, enough to call it out as one of the most consistent effects. It reframes the risk. Not just cancer decades later, but immune function nudged off course while you're still in elementary school. Move to metabolism. Cholesterol creeps up. Across populations, higher PFOA, PFOS, PFNA, and PFDA track with elevated total and LDL cholesterol. People hear diet advice and stat numbers and wonder why the needle won't move. There isn't a single mechanism pinned down for every compound, but the pattern holds. The liver shows its own response, changes in enzymes that hint at stress. In animals, chronic PFAS exposure leads to enlarged livers and steatosis. In humans, we see enzyme shifts that don't prove damage alone, but fit the larger picture of interference. Reproduction and development tell a quieter story that starts early. Pregnancy data show increased risks of hypertension and preeclampsia with higher exposure to the legacy pair, PFOA and PFOS. Lower birth weight shows up again and again. As those kids grow, researchers see altered timing of puberty, skeletal differences, and behavioral changes. None of these findings give a clean causal map for every child. But the consistency across studies is why agencies keep tightening advisories and why that maximum contaminant level goal sits at 0 for PFOA and PFOS. Cancer is the word nobody wants to hear, and the science is careful here. The C8 Science Panel drew probable links between PFOA and kidney and testicular cancers in exposed communities. Later analyses widened the lens, reporting associations between PFOA-S in drinking water and increased incidence across multiple systems: oral and pharyngeal, digestive, respiratory, endocrine, with sex-specific patterns. Researchers estimated thousands of cancer cases attributable to PFAS in drinking water over a 5-year window. That doesn't mean PFAS caused any one person's tumor. It means that across populations, exposure is linked to increased risk. Here's what PFAS don't do. They don't explode your timeline. You won't drink a glass and fall ill tomorrow. They don't announce themselves with a smell or taste. They don't follow a simple dose-then-effect script, because life isn't a lab. Diet, genetics, other exposures, and timing matter. Mixtures matter. There are thousands of PFAS. Most toxicology and epidemiology centers on a handful. The absence of a data sheet for every cousin isn't safety. It's uncertainty layered on persistence. Shorter chain replacements complicate the picture. Industry points out they bioaccumulate less, and that's true in a narrow sense. But higher mobility means they spread farther and show up in more places, especially water. Standard treatment misses them more easily. In animals, compounds like GenX trigger liver and kidney toxicity and immune changes. Tumors appear with chronic dosing. Human data are thinner so far, not because risk is absent, but because the window is shorter and studies take time. Meanwhile, the exposure continues. There's a reason regulators drew that line at 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS and set the goal at 0. It reflects a precaution informed by the weight of evidence across systems: immune, metabolic, reproductive, carcinogenic. It also reflects feasibility, because you can't snap your fingers and rebuild water plants. Utilities install carbon, ion exchange, and reverse osmosis, because PFAS don't respond to chlorine or boiling. Homes use point-of-use filters as a bridge, not a cure. In the clinic, PFAS rarely show up as a single smoking gun. They show up as patterns: cholesterol that's stubborn, antibody titers a bit lower than expected, blood pressure creeping during pregnancy, a diagnosis that matches a panel's list. Doctors don't order a PFAS test panel the way they check glucose. They come with a to-do list that lives outside medicine. Better water, fewer sources, tighter rules. The labs exist, but results don't come with a prescription. It's tempting to wait for perfect certainty. That's how persistence wins. PFAS were designed to resist breakdown. Biology never had a say in that design. What they do in the body is slow, cumulative, and measured in probabilities that add up across neighborhoods. What they don't do is warn you in time: the moving goalposts, limits, standards, and politics. Standards don't arrive as lightning bolts. They creep, stall, and then lurch forward when the pressure gets loud enough. For PFAS, the numbers tell the story of how caution became conviction. In 2009, health advisories floated in the tens to hundreds of parts per trillion. By 2022, after more evidence on immune effects and cancers, EPA slashed those advisories to near 0. It was a message without a mandate. Then 2024 landed with the first legally enforceable national drinking water standards. By 2025, PAOA and PFOS were fixed at 4 parts per trillion, and the health goal, MCLG, sat at 0. The agency was saying, in plain science speak, we can't identify a safe level. Here's where politics steps in. The Safe Drinking Water Act doesn't let EPA wish a number into existence. It demands cost-benefit analyses, feasibility, peer review, and comment periods that pull in utilities, industry, states, and the public. The result is compromise welded to caution. Strict limits paired with long timelines. Systems have until 2031 to comply. That buys time to design and build granular activated carbon beds, ion exchange arrays, or reverse osmosis units. It also leaves families staring at notices while kids move from booster shots to middle school. Water utilities push for realism. Trade groups warned about billions in capital costs, supply chain bottlenecks, and small systems that can't absorb shocks. They weren't arguing against health, they were arguing against unfunded mandates. EPA responded with technical assistance and a polluter pays posture aimed upstream, signaling enforcement against industrial sources. Environmental groups called the 4PPT a long overdue floor and pushed for broader class-based regulation to block the next substitution maneuver. Industry argued that PFAS enabled critical technologies, medical devices, semiconductors, and asked for targeted rules, not sweeping bans. States didn't wait for federal clarity. Some set their own limits earlier, sometimes stricter, creating a patchwork that reflected local pressure and local contamination. For residents, that meant your risk depended on your zip code and your state house. A shoreline town with PFAS and fish posted advisories before a landlocked county even knew what was in its wells. Politics is geographic, exposure isn't. Even inside EPA's rule, you can see the tug of war. April 2024 initially set enforceable limits for 5 PFAS, PFOA, PFOS at 4 PPT, PFNA, PFHXXS, and GenX at 10 PPT, plus a mixture index. By May 2025, the agency retained the 4 PPT for PFOA and PFOS, but moved to rescind and reconsider the others, along with the hazard index. Why? Legal challenges, evolving science, and the reality that regulating thousands of PFAS compound by compound is a treadmill. The zero health goal stayed. The message was steady even as the machinery adjusted. Meanwhile, public expectations changed. The C8 Science Panel's probable links made the hazard concrete. Kidney and testicular cancers, pregnancy-induced hypertension and preeclampsia, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, elevated cholesterol. Subsequent analyses estimating thousands of PFAS attributable cancers in a 5-year window widened the lens. Parents don't parse hazard indexes. They ask if the water's safe today. Boards responded with interim steps, temporary GAC skids, blending strategies, prioritized main replacements near schools, while permanent treatment moved through procurement. There's another layer, the switch to shorter chain PFAS like GenX reframed feasibility. Shorter chains are more mobile, often requiring tighter treatment to capture. Standard plants built for pathogens and metals have to become precision chemists. Reverse osmosis works but creates a waste stream that still contains PFAS. Concentrate disposal becomes the next political fight. Incineration, deep well injection, or landfills not designed for forever. Every solution moves the chemical. None destroys the carbon-fluorine bond at scale with easy certainty. Industry points to emissions controls and closed-loop systems that cut releases. Some matter. North Carolina's 2017 order to stop GenX discharges into the Cape Fear River shows regulation with teeth can shift behavior quickly. Europe's decision to add GenX to the substances of very high concern list reinforces that this isn't a US-only reckoning. But the broader question remains, do we regulate PFAS as a class to avoid regrettable substitution, or keep slicing the salami? Class-based rules reduce whack-a-mole risk. They also force hard conversations about where PFAS are truly indispensable. Politics also shapes monitoring. Utilities typically test for a small panel. Thousands of PFAS exist. Residents read a report listing 5 compounds and assume the rest aren't there. That gap isn't deception, it's a testing reality. Expanding target lists costs money and lab capacity. Yet without broader screening, you miss what you're not looking for. Communities with manufacturing nearby now press for disclosure of full inventory and emissions, not just the regulated few. And then there's timing. The 2031 deadline lives like a countdown in towns sitting just under 4 PPT today. One drought or one operational hiccup can nudge levels over. Boards have to decide whether to move early or ride the clock. Ratepayers will feel it either way, through bills, bonds, or taxes. EPA's polluter pays line could shift costs upstream if courts uphold aggressive enforcement. That's a politics of accountability, not charity. Through it all, the health goal of zero acts like North Star, an indictment. It says, the endpoint isn't 4 PPT, it's as close to none as engineering and law can get. That's why personal filters aren't a finish line, they're a bridge. That's why source control beats end-of-pipe heroics. And that's why families reading tiny decimals on a PDF aren't overreacting. They're reading the story in numbers. Caution to near zero advisories, advisories to enforceable limits, limits to a long build. The goalposts didn't just move. They finally showed up on the field. Heat, scratches, and habits. The pan-level truth. Most people meet PFAS at breakfast, not in a courtroom. So let's stay at the stove and talk about what actually matters where the egg meets the pan. Heat, time, and tiny damages you barely notice. Start with heat. PTFE Nonstick works at typical cooking temps, but it's got a line you don't want to cross. Preheating an empty pan on high can push temperatures past safe ranges fast. Around the upper hundreds, the polymer starts to degrade. Go higher and fumes emerge, the ones that can kill birds and give people polymer fume fever. No smoke alarm warns you. The dog coughs first. The fix is unglamorous. Keep burners moderate, add food or liquid before the pan runs hot, and use ventilation. If you're still using PTFE, don't broil with it, don't use it in the pizza oven, and don't leave it empty on a high burner while you answer a text. Scratches are the other slow leak. PTFE coatings are thin. Metal utensils, abrasive pads, and stacking pans bear-to-bear chew through that layer. A scratch isn't dramatic. It's a pathway. With enough wear, flakes peel, coating performance collapses, and you're cooking on patches. Manufacturers say degraded coatings should be replaced. And that's not just about non-stick. Once a coating is compromised, heat exposes underlying metal and accelerates breakdown. The habit change is simple. Wood or silicone utensils, soft sponges, and pan protectors or paper towels between stacked pans. If the surface is chalking or pitting, retire it. Now to habits. The classic mistake is the empty preheat on high. Another is using aerosol sprays designed for grilling. Propellants and additives can polymerize onto surfaces and gum the coating. Use a small amount of oil or butter instead, and wipe excess with a towel to avoid carbonized residue. Don't shock a hot pan under cold water. Thermal stress warps metal and can lift the coating. Let it cool, hand wash, and dry fully. Dishwashers are tough on non-stick. Detergents and heat shorten lifespan. Hand washing buys you time, which isn't nothing when the coating is the entire point. Bird owners live in a different risk category. Avian lungs are exquisitely sensitive. Even normal cooking mishaps, a forgotten preheat, a covered pan that climbs in temperature, can be fatal to birds in the same airspace. If you have birds, PTFA doesn't belong in your home. Cast iron, carbon steel, stainless, or PFAS free. Ceramic-coated options are safer lanes. Pair them with a habit set that works. Heat pan, add fat, give it a minute, then add food. With seasoning, cast iron and carbon steel deliver real non-stick for proteins and eggs when used right. Let's talk alternatives without selling fairy tales. Ceramic-coated non-stick pans, marketed as PFAS, offer slick performance out of the box. They're easier on birds and won't off-gas PTFA breakdown products. But they wear faster, often 1 to 3 years with regular use, especially at high heat and in dishwashers. If you pick ceramic, treat it gently and accept that it's a consumable cast. Iron and carbon steel, by contrast, get better with use. Seasoning builds a polymerized oil layer that releases food and can be renewed. They demand maintenance, dry after washing, thin oil coat, occasional reseasoning, but they last decades. Stainless doesn't pretend to be non-stick, it rewards technique. Heat the pan, add oil, let it shimmer. Food will release when the mylar crust forms. For sticky jobs like eggs, drop the heat and add fat. It's a skill shift, not a sacrifice. There's also the question of smoke points. Any fat smokes if pushed and burnt oil varnishes onto surfaces. That makes sticking worse on every material. Keep temps aligned with your fat avocado or refined oils for searing, butter for lower heat, or add it at the end. If you smell burnt oil, you've created the enemy of release. Deglaze while warm or scrub gently before the residue becomes a permanent film. What about the idea that a scratched PTFE pan dumps PFAS into food? The polymer itself is inert at normal temps. The bigger concern is the conditions that created the scratches. Rough cleaning, overheating, and what they imply about future use. Once a coating is chewed up, you'll chase stickiness with higher heat, landing right where fume risks grow. The safer route is to replace the pan or leave PTFE behind. If you stick with non-stick, set a retirement policy. When the surface goes from lotus leaf slick to grabby, or if you see bubbling, flaking, or deep scuffs, call time. Don't donate it. Downstream kitchens aren't a disposal plan. If your municipality accepts scrap metal, separate handles can send the body along. If not, landfill is often the only option. It's not satisfying, but it's honest. Finally, match tool to task. Use stainless or carbon steel for searing, cast iron for oven-to-stove braises and cornbread, ceramic coated for delicate eggs on medium heat, and a well-seasoned skillet for pancakes. Keep birds away from kitchens with any high heat cooking. Build habits that lower heat spikes. Preheat gently, ventilate, and never leave pans unattended. None of this rewrites PFAS policy. But at the pan level, these choices turn risk from invisible to managed, and convenience into a tool you control instead of a promise you take on faith. The Personal Action Plan, lowering PFAS in daily life. The web is wide, but you're not powerless. Start with water, because it's the most controllable daily source. Look up your utility's PFAS report. PFOA and PFOS now have enforceable limits of 4 parts per trillion, with a health goal of 0. If results are anywhere near those numbers, install a certified point-of-use filter at the kitchen tap. Granular activated carbon and reverse osmosis are the workhorses. Check for certifications that specifically list PFAS reduction. If you're on a private, well, test annually and after floods or droughts, then pick treatment based on what's actually present. Food comes next. Shift fish choices towards sources with routine testing and away from waters with advisories. If your state posts limits on local fish, follow them. Those notices exist because monitoring found a signal before the statistics did. Choose more fresh and minimally processed foods. Fast food wrappers and grease-resistant boxes can transfer PFAS to what you're eating. When you can, skip microwave popcorn bags and baked kernels in a pot with a lid. For eggs, meat, and dairy, favor producers not using biosolids as fertilizer, or ask your market what they know. Some do track this. At home, the dust matters. PFAS shed from stain-resistant carpets, treated upholstery, and water-repellent textiles can end up in indoor dust, especially important for kids. If you're replacing flooring or furniture, opt out of stain guard treatments. Vacuum with a HEPA filter weekly, wet mop hard floors, and wash kids' hands before meals and after floor play.